All right, so I'm going to give it a shot, trying to explain reflections with a picture. So, if you want to reflect something across the x-axis, it says here that you put a negative on the outside of the parentheses, and if you want to reflect something across the y-axis, you put a negative on the inside of the parentheses. All right. All right. So here's a picture. This is on page 114 in your book. All right. They give you the original function in black right here, and this represents f of x. In blue here, you see they reflect it across the x-axis. Yep, they reflect it across the x-axis here, and in green, they reflect it across the y-axis. All right. Now, in general, here's kind of our definitions. This is how you can think of functions. F of x as a whole is the y values. All right, so I could have put an f of x right here. These are the outputs, and x itself are the inputs. All right, that's the way it works here. So you plug in some number for x, and you get an f of x. You get an output back. All right. Now, what they're going to do for these, reflection rules, you have a negative f of x and an f of negative x. All right, they just reflect things around the x or the y-axis. So if you look here, we'll look at the blue one. If you want to take this black one and reflect it across the x-axis, notice that the x value, it stays the same, right? It's only the y value that gets changed. You take the 1, you put a negative 1 on it. All right. If you look at this point 3, 4, the 3 stays the same, but the negative 4, the y value, does change. All right. And that's what happens. When you just change the y value, something gets reflected across the x-axis. So I'm taking this y value and I'm just changing it. All right. If I add a negative to the y value, it's like adding a negative to the f of x. Right? And that's why you get a resulting, flip across the x-axis. Right? And on the green one, you can see here they're changing, they're not changing the y values, but they're changing the x values. From 3, 4 to negative 3, 4, they're just changing this x value. Right? The 4 stays the same. On the 1, 1, you're getting a negative 1, 1. They're just changing the x value. Okay, so that's what you have when you reflect something across the y-axis. All right, it flips it this way. So we're just changing the inputs. We're just changing the x values. All right? And that's why f of x always reflects across the y-axis. And that's why negative f of x always reflects across the x-axis. Right? So it's a little counterintuitive. It's backwards is what you might think. When you put a negative on the y values, it flips it across the x-axis. When you put a negative on the x values, it reflects it across the y-axis. All right. But those are the two rules, and we're going to play with them here in a moment.